Great. Okay, so welcome to the shift. Amy Walsh, right?
Yes, yeah, thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you. I know that you had done my show in New York, but we never actually officially got to meet because I can't remember where. I was doing other shows.
Yeah, it was unreal. It was great crack.
And
It was
where
savage.
you're living in Vancouver.
Yeah, I'm living in Vancouver now for the last year and a half.
Oh, where were you before?
I was in Dublin and then the pandemic hit, and then I was in the west of Ireland in Galway in my parents' house, and then I was like, "Feck this! I need to get out of Ireland." So yeah, I moved to moved to Vancouver then.
So you've only been in Vancouver for a year and a half, and
Yeah,
you did you start comedy in Dublin?
I did. Yeah. I started it
Wow.
in ended 2018, I think. Yeah, so it was
Mm.
just like getting going, picking things were picking up, and then everything shut down.
Of
Yeah.
course, of course. How do you find it in Vancouver versus back home?
It's great. Like it's unreal. The scene here is brilliant. It's I definitely had to when I first moved, I definitely had to slow down a lot of my speech and yeah, different like obviously slang words and stuff. Like I just had to kind of take them out of my vocabulary while I was on stage. Because like I use crack like all the time. So trying to explain that and stuff, I was like, okay, I need to get rid of this. And also yeah, I found some of the content, like I was telling stories about my dad and stuff, like just a normal Irish dad, but I could tell the audience were like, what the fuck is
Yeah,
she
they're like,
talking
"Oh my
about?
God, you're being abused."
Yeah, literally.
You're like, "No,
Yeah,
that
they're
means
like,
he loves
what?
me."
Yeah, that's how he shows affection.
What
Yeah.
are you talking about?
He
A hit in the
shouts
back of
all
the
the
head
time.
means I did well.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a little bit of a definitely an adjustment, but I think it's definitely made me a better writer and stuff because I'm like, okay, I need to like write more universally than just kind of stuff that Irish people would get, which I think I kind of had fallen into a little bit with some of my content. So yeah, it's and I've based in Vancouver, but I've gigged over in Alberta as well, and over there it's kind of more rural and stuff, and they've more of a similar attitude to Ireland, I think, a little less kind of height. But yeah, so it was interesting to see the kind of the differences between the two provinces. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's yeah.
It's like Dublin versus Galway.
Yeah, yeah, literally, yeah.
And you were in Galway, right? Or did I just pick Galway because you said the West Ireland?
No, yeah, I'm from Galway, yeah. So yeah, yeah.
And why Vancouver?
Honestly, like I had heard it was great crack. Then like I people with like doing snowboarding and like the beaches, and then I had heard the comedy scene was decent. So I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'll give it a go. And I'd yeah, kind of just come to the like end of my tether with Ireland and just being locked up there during the pandemic. And so I said, I'll see what it's like. And yeah, then I just like came over for the crack. And that's what one of my friends, she was like, she's Canadian, and she asked me why Vancouver. And I was like, well, I heard the crack was good. And then, of course, that common conversation that we have to have all the time of explaining what the word crack means.
Yeah, yeah. They're like, no, you need to go to like New York for those good drugs. It's
Yeah.
funny because it's such a like it's a word you think, and it's I've heard like American comedians for years do jokes about the word crack and how Irish people use the word crack, and they watch shows, but they still always automatically forget or go to drugs, and I'm like, I know you know, so shut up,
Yeah, yeah,
okay? I know
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Yeah, it's like, and also the context as well. It's like, come
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Yeah. No, they don't do context clues. Sorry to generalize, but for sure, like I don't know what it's like in Canada. I just think of Canadians as like polite Americans, but they
Yeah,
are North
yeah,
Americans. It's like
yeah.
it's so weird because we all call it America, but it's not America. It's the United States, and it's just yeah, like, Canadians are just a North nicer American, but they are American. They're just yeah, it's very confusing.
Yeah,
But anyway,
North
yes.
American. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they don't do context clues. I find are lost here a lot as well. Yeah, because I'm trying to explain like Irish sayings and stuff, and still like They just don't get it. Like, what was the one recently? Oh, you wouldn't lick it off a stone. And then like even when I explained it, like it's like you didn't get it from nowhere, they were like, that doesn't make sense. I was like, fuck it does.
No, actually, I didn't know that because there's loads of sayings I say, but I don't realize that they're just for at home. And like, my friend was saying, "Oh, do you say blowing smoke up someone's arse?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Yeah, because you've been saying it." And then she goes, no, she goes, "Is it an Irish saying?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And she goes, "But you say it all the time." And I said it to my friend who's American, and they were like, "What are you saying?" And then she was like, "Oh, I must just pick that up off you." And then she was like, "I keep going to be like, oh yeah, it's grand." And people are like, "What?" And then she's like, "Oh yeah, that's not a saying here." But she's like, "I just keep picking up your words because I'm hanging out with you so much."
Yeah, that's the exact same with like so many of my sayings are like things I don't think are Irish, and I say them, and then my Canadian friends are like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And yeah, one of my friends has picked up so many Irishisms because hanging out with me, and then her boyfriend is Irish, so she says like grand, and now she uses crack like correctly as
Yeah.
well, and it doesn't sound like it's forced.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's funny, but something that really, I don't know, do you get it? Like, do people make fun of your accents, like mimic your accents?
Yeah, yeah, to my
Yeah.
face all the time, just constantly, every single day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's wild.
yeah.
Like, it's
No, I'd
all the
say
time.
every Irish comedian who will ever work in America or Canada or other countries, specifically America, though, I don't actually think other countries do as much, will have a bit about having their accent mimicked to their face because it's just like it's like they're a parrot. Like I'll be like, "Hello, how are you?" And they're like, "Hello, how are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I didn't say that." And
Literally.
they're like, "You didn't say that." And I'm like, "What is going? Did you just break down?"
And it's always the same thing of like the diddly diddly, like just, oh my God. And they all think that they're being original as well. It's like, no, I've heard this so many fucking times. Like, just, yeah, I'm so, like, it's so sick of it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you're hack now with your no, no, 100%. What was it? There was just with the context clues, Lad Bibles shared these like tweets. I don't know if you've seen it, but one of them, he was an Irish guy. I don't know if he was working in the States or Canada, but he was saying that he's a teacher and his student was like, "Oh, I really liked or his student was saying that they got this book and he goes, "Oh yeah, how did you find it?" And she goes, "In the library." He's no, I mean like, did you enjoy it? It's so funny, just something as simple like that. Or there was another tweet from a girl, and she was an English girl, and she said that her when she started dating her fella, he'd be like, "Oh, and then your man was doing this, and then your man was doing that, and then your man was off here." Did you see that one? And then she was like, "I
No,
don't have a man," just to let you know, like. And he was like, "No,
oh,
it's like a universal, your man."
that's happened to me as well with your man. And I was talking to my old boss and I was like, your man. And she goes, what does my boyfriend have anything to do with this? I was like, what are you talking about? Because I even forgot. I was like, what? And I was like, oh, yeah, your man, your one. Yeah, that means the man and the woman, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. And what are you? So you were saying your boss? Do you do other work as well?
Yeah, I have a day job. Yeah. So I currently have like a data job that I work
Oh,
from home. So yeah, it's great.
I mean that's great. You work from home,
Uh,
so that's perfect.
Yeah, oh, yeah, it is what it is. It's great for gigs though, like in traveling around and like yeah, I can do like the day job during the day and then gigging in the evening. So yeah, it is what it is.
Have you gigged in other places in America other than New York?
No, 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 I haven't. No, just Western Canada now, and then I'm hoping to get to Toronto then as well. But
When are you
yeah,
going to Toronto?
I'm hoping maybe like October, November,
Nice.
possibly. Yeah, because my visa is up in no, September, so I have to like figure that out. And there's like this weird period that I might not be able to leave the country, so I'm like, oh, I might as well just do my more Canadian gigging while I'm like stuck in here. Well, I might be.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's just mostly Western Canada now. So at the moment, so yeah, it's been good crack.
And have you like dated over there at all?
Yeah.
Do you like it?
Oh, I have, yeah. So I was in a long distance relationship for the first year that I was here.
With someone from
And
back
then,
home. Obviously from
yeah,
back home.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, you're like, no, I
Yeah,
found someone in France.
yeah. Just this French lad. No, yeah, I was in Ireland, and then I kind of had this like dream, I suppose, that he'd want to move over here, but he didn't, and he came over to visit, and he was like, "No, I don't want to move." And then I he wants to stay at home, and I want to stay here longer. So yeah, it was just kind of like it didn't make sense anymore. So yeah, I went. Now I've been doing doing some dating over here, and yeah, it's been interesting. I had a casualty actually at a fella's house the other day. So this fella I know about. I knew about 2 weeks at the time, and then I was at his house after a gig, and I had only like two drinks. And I was like, "I'd love a packet of crisps," and he was like, "Oh, I don't have any. We can go out to the shop." And I was like, "Oh, Jesus, I'm not arsed. Like, I don't want to go." He was like, "Oh yeah, sure, we can make some." And I was like, sounds a bit mad, but okay, yeah, let's do it. And do you ever see the mandolins with like that you slice vegetables on?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I picked up the potato. And also the fact that it was a fucking potato related injury is so annoying because all the Canadians are like, oh, Irish people and potatoes.
Mm.
So yeah, I picked up the potato, and then as I was asking him how it works, I was like, how does this work? And then I did it, and I went three slices, and the second slice caught the top of my pinky. It was like the edge, it got the nail and everything. Yeah.
Oh, this feels like it was
So
possessed by your ex in Galway. He was like going through with the potato.
being like injure her.
That's,
Yeah.
are you going to be okay? Is the nail going to come back?
Like it's getting there now. The finger
Oh,
looks a bit weird, but yeah. And I was like, it was the day before I came to New York, so I was like, I don't want to go to the fucking hospital, not ours. And so I was like, well, just wrap it and just give me a load of drink there, and so I just don't feel the pain. And then like I went over, I only know him 2 weeks, went over for one thing, like I went over for the ride. So I was was like, sure, we might as well still ride. So
yeah.
rode with the finger in the air. It would have stopped bleeding at that point. And then I woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was like, this is a bit fucked. I need to go to the hospital. So went, and they like wrapped it up. And yeah, it was very sore, but it's grand now.
I think you have to get an injury your first year or so in a different country as an Irish person because I used to go to the hospital as well because
Oh no, what did you do?
I tried to open an avocado and I stabbed myself. And it was very like you, typical Irish, where I was like, I was kind of like, I don't know if I should go to the hospital because it'll probably be grand. But there was like blood gushing everywhere, and my roommate was crying. And then I was telling her, I was like, it's okay, it's okay. So I'm like taking care of her while it's like blood everywhere. And I'm like, it's grand. And she's like, oh, I gotta look at this.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But yeah, I had to go to the do you have health insurance?
So it's free
Oh,
here.
oh,
So
fuck's sake, I
yeah.
went to the wrong American place.
I know, because I was as well, like, because I was going to America as well the next day. I was like, I can't fucking go to the hospital. Like, in America, it's going to cost me so much money. So, yeah, eventually, yeah, I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll just go. Did you cut your hand like there in on your palm when you were doing the
No,
avocado?
well, yeah, basically, but I caught the tip of the in between the fingers, so it was on a
Oh,
curve. Yeah, it was on a curve on the like V between your fingers, and so it was like they needed to stitch it because it wouldn't have healed. I guess I don't know. Anyway, it was a whole fucking thing. It was like $3,000, but I refused to pay. But I haggled them down to 300 because I was like, oh, I'll just leave your country, and they were like, all right, okay, three hundred
for a few
dollars.
stitches.
Yeah, imagine 3 grand. And I took the stitches out
Oh,
myself. They tried to charge an extra grand for taking the stitches out. And I was like, I didn't even do that. So you can't be charging me for
what?
services I didn't fucking get. Do
How
you
did you
know?
take them out yourself?
I just picked them out. I picked them out at work in a restaurant, which is fucking disgusting. I went into the bathroom and I used the health and safety box and just picked them out with the scissors. I was like, I'm not going back. Fuck this.
Oh, God, that's insane though. Yeah, Jesus. But yeah, no, that's
Well, I'm
yeah,
glad you got the
typical Irish
ride
behavior.
though.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I was doing gigs over on Vancouver Island, and I was telling one of the comedians the story, and they were like, it was a lad, and he was like, Oh, I hope it wasn't him that suggested the ride after you'd severed your finger. That would be weird. I was like, no, it was me. It was all me. I was like, well, we might as well still ride. And he was really good. He like wrapped up the finger and was really nice to me.
Did he
And
wrap up
yeah.
the penis? He's probably like, I'll put all my
He
effort in
did,
wrapping
yeah.
up her finger. Okay, good, good, good. Yeah, because that's something I think now, I find like New York, or like, yeah, I guess maybe New York, but men are more likely to just automatically use a condom. You don't really have to. My experience was
Yeah.
that because they're more like STD aware and stuff like that. Whereas, but I guess that's not true because I had the odd fucker that would try to like nearly manipulate you out of it. But then I've
Yeah.
had like Irish guys where they're like, oh, I can't get hurt, I can't, and you're like, oh, shut like that. I felt Irish guys are the hardest to get into a condom.
Hardest to get hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this I can't
Yeah.
get hard is bullshit. My friend once told me he just says that to girls, so he doesn't have to use a condom. I'm like, you're a piece of shit. Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
been said to me as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever find like sometimes my Irish guy friends, from when I was younger, let's say, so some of the guys who I'm friends with here are gonna listen to this and be like, I didn't fucking say that. I'm not talking about you. But some of them when they're younger would say some shit to me, or there's like a couple of Irish guys I worked with in different places via bars, or even like ones I met through comedy that I'm not like close with, but they'd say stuff to me and I'd be like, who do you think I'm like one of the lads? Like I'm not gonna be like, oh, that's okay, you cheat on your missus. Or
Yeah.
that's okay, you're
Oh,
like assaulting someone. Like literally be like, yeah,
it's
yeah, fucking,
fucked.
and I fucking bullied her. I told her, oh, I can't get her hard. So eventually, she gave in. I didn't have to use condom. And I'm like, what on my face seems like I want to hear that. Like that's my that's
I've had this similar experience, yeah, and it's like, what do you want me to say? Like, good on you, like for like lying to a woman so you won't use a condom, and like it's all, yeah, it's fucking when you're in that vulnerable position as well, when you're in bed with someone and they're like, yeah, no, blah blah blah, and you are under pressure, and sometimes like it's hard to be like, oh no, like yeah, you
it's such
definitely
a
can get
mood
hard.
killer too when you have to be like, no, use it. And they're like, oh no, no, come on. You're like, no, you have to use it. And they're like, no, 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 come on. You're like, no, fucking you. Like it's
You
like you just use it.
use it.
And yeah.
I
God.
had one lad recently say to me, he was like, oh, it's just like really annoying to put on like a condom, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what's more annoying? An STD or a baby.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
come
yeah. An
on,
itchy
it's just
dick. And he definitely has an itchy dick if he's saying that's why. That's why it's uncomfortable.
yeah. And you know what? I think he was Irish as well. I think he was from Tip, I think.
Yeah, sounds about
Yeah.
right.
Oh, the second, yeah. Oh man. But yeah,
Tipland.
the I went on a date on Tuesday actually, and it was a Canadian fella, and instantly I was like, no, I don't like his vibe. He was just very like, I don't know, a bit pernickety, and he kept saying, which is a absolute pet peeve of mine, he kept saying just joking after jokes. And I was
Mm.
like, I know it's a joke. You don't have to fucking explain it to me. Or like, just kidding. And yeah, it was a grand date in terms of like good conversation. But yeah, he was just like not my type or whatever. And then he lives near me. And so he was like we were walking home, and he wanted to like keep going down his street. And I was like, no, I'm gonna like, let's go to my street. Like, why would we go down your street? He was like, I'm not trying to murder you or anything. I was like, that's something a murderer would say. And we're on a dark street and I don't know you. This is weird. And then he asked me, we got to the corner near his house, and he was like, want to come in for a nightcap? I was like,
Oh,
no, I
what are we in a
don't.
70s movie? Nightcap. What is that? That actually sounds like a rape drug. That doesn't sound like a drink. That sounds like I'm gonna roof you.
Like, I'm gonna take you into my apartment and yeah, give you a date rape joke. Yeah, it was weird, and he was just a bit slimy. And then yeah, whatever, I went home, and then he messaged me the next day on Tinder and was like, oh, want to hang out again, we could go bowling or something. And I was like, look, no, I just didn't feel a spark. Then he unmatched me, didn't even reply, unmatched me. And I was like, whatever, fuck off. I was in the supermarket yesterday after like going to a hot yoga class. I look like shite walking through. Who's in the queue but your man? So like, I just ran to the like last aisle and hid in the cereal with the cereal until I was like, he's definitely gone now.
Yeah, and like, look, I guess like unmatching people, whatever, they're not interested. But yeah, I'd also want to look good and be like, oh, no worries. Well, it was lovely to meet you. That's
Yeah.
and then you live right beside each other. So it's like, oh, you're gonna unmatch me in real life? Like, what's he gonna do? He sees you walking down the street and he's gonna be like, no, I've unmatched you. You don't exist in my reality.
Exactly, because that's the thing. Like the fact that we live so close to each other, I was like, okay, fair enough if you want to match, but we're probably going to bump into each other. It's literally a street over. So yeah, then when I saw him in the supermarket, I was like, ah, fuck.
I've had
Yeah.
like, God, the I remember I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast. So for OG listeners, sorry if I did, but I did an Irish guy messaged me on Instagram. I had like two weird interactions with Irish Instagram people who no three. Jesus. Okay, three weird Irish guys um who took rejection really bad. There was one guy and they all followed me on Instagram from seeing like my jokes, okay? So three
Okay.
fans I lost. Whoops. But
Three precious fans.
I know. And this was like years ago. This is before my boyfriend. We've been together 2 years. But um there was a guy and he was lovely when we met up and everything. And he anyway, he
I'm
I just
excited.
I know. I just didn't want to go on a second date. I think we'd had a coffee date and then we'd had a second date where it was the time when it was during COVID as well. So in New York, you couldn't get the trains past 10. And he was like, but I lived like maybe I think one stop away from him or just a bit of a walk, but he was like, just stay, like you can't get the train. And so I did and we had like fun and everything, but I just wasn't I don't know. You know what happened was he got drunk and was sending me a bunch of weird messages one night, but he hadn't responded to a message a couple of days later. And I was like, that's like a red flag to me. And he was like sending
Yeah.
me messages like, oh, my friends, this girl's really drunk. I don't know. Like, should I bring her back to her apartment? And I was like, what is going on? That's
He
way
was
too much.
messaging you that.
Yeah.
What?
So I was ignoring that because I was like, that is way too much information for me. And I don't like, I don't
That's
have the
fucking
context.
weird.
Yeah, it's just weird. So then a few days later, he was just like, "Oh, sorry, I was drunk. Do you want to meet up again?" And I was like, "Actually, this isn't like for me, but best of luck." And then like a couple of days later, I got a message, and it was like, "Why don't you want to go out with me again?" And I was like, "I just genuinely, I don't feel the spark. But thanks for a fun time." And then he goes, um, wait, he goes, "I'm not a creep." And then I was like sitting there because I was part of a running club at the time, which I fucking hate running, but I was just doing it to socialize during the pandemic. I was like, this lad is literally having a conversation with himself because he goes, "Do you think I'm a creep?" And I go, "No, not at all. Had a great time, just not feeling the spark." And then he goes, "Because I'm not a creep." And I'm like, what the fuck did he read? Like I when I got that message, I went, what did I write? And then I replied like, yeah, I know. That's what I said. And then he wrote back because if I were a creep, and I guess he must have been mid writing this when I replied, I would have put a hand on you, but I didn't when you asked me not to, because I stayed in his bed that night, but I said I didn't want to have sex. He goes, and I
Yeah.
didn't. So that shows that I'm not a creep. And then I wrote back, are you looking for an award for not like raping somebody? Like, you don't get like congratulations for not assaulting someone or for being like
What the
respectful. Um, and then he like spiraled in the messages or whatever. And I think I just didn't respond. And then there was another guy who like was Irish and he asked me to call him, like, oh, I'd love to take on a date. And I was like, let's do a phone call first. Because Des, who was the co-host of this podcast, would always say,
Yeah.
do a phone call. And I just wasn't feeling it. So then I was just like, oh yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in meeting up. And he sent me like really angry messages. And I was like, oh, now I have to block this weirdo. Yeah, people like it's so strange. It's like,
That's
and
insane.
right. And then there was another guy who again via Instagram, but he like he insisted on meeting up for coffee and I was like, I don't know, like I actually just got out of something. And I was like, just had been seeing someone that I was like obsessed with. It was only a months long hooking up, but I was like,
Oh yeah,
you
one
know,
of
this,
those. Yeah,
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 like got like in my soul, and like not like he paid for anything, not like he even got me an Uber home when I'd stay over, not even a
Oh,
gentleman. And he would
yeah,
say
one of the
like,
worst.
yeah, and he would say like the just joking thing as well, and no drama and whatever. I don't know what I was like stigmatized, as they say, and
Yeah,
he was like
yeah.
really good
Yeah,
looking.
yeah. Oh, I fucking know that all too well.
Yeah, and he was like British, so I was like, oh, the oppressor, you know. Uh,
The rebel inside you
yeah,
conflicting.
yeah, yeah, getting wet for the abuse, but he so I said to the Irish, and then the Irish goes, "Oh, I just want to be friends. I'm coming over. You pick a place. I'm like on my way. Like I really just want to be friends." So all of a sudden, I'm like going for coffee with someone, and I did feel a bit like, in hindsight, is a bit bullied into hanging out with someone. And then he came
He
to my
said he
show
was on.
that,
Did he
yeah,
say
he
he
said
was
I'm on
on
my
your
way.
way?
Yeah, because I had said I lived in Astoria. So he's
Okay.
like, so if you don't pick a place, I'll just be randomly in Astoria. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going
Oh,
now.
that's weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then when I went to when I met up with him for coffee, I was like, oh, he's kind of good crack. He just like talked a lot, and then he came to my show. Fast forward, I did my choking joke where I say I don't like being choked, and then and it was a bad show, but I had a great set, and then my friend had a great set afterwards, and he was saying in front of everybody, "Oh, like Katie, you were so funny," but Danish had me crying, and I was like, "All right, you don't need. You're also trying to fuck me, so you don't need to say that. It's a weird thing to like, and it's also like, okay, you're comparing me to the guy comedian, and also I got them going for him, so you don't even
Yeah,
understand
yeah,
comedy."
yeah.
And then I decided, of course, because at the time I loved hurting myself, I decided I'd go home and sleep with him anyway. And I was like, whatever, you know, he is hot. And then when we had sex, he choked me, and I pull back and I go, "What are you doing?" I literally have a joke about how I hate being choked, and he goes, "I just wanted to make sure." Like he genuinely
Oh,
thought
what?
that he knew better than me, than my words on stage, than my own past experience, like mental. And then I didn't hang
I
out with him
wanted
again.
to make sure.
Isn't that the
Get out
craziest
to
thing?
fuck.
And then like a month later, he sent me a voice message because I just didn't, I wasn't, I just was like, no, I'm not interested again. And he was like, can we be friends? And I was like, oh, I was like, oh, we can be like friendly. I don't know, we were just trying to get out of it. But then he kept writing
Yeah.
shit on my Instagram live, so I just blocked him. So it was like shit about his ex-wife. Anyway, long story short, then he left me a voice message, and it was like, "Hey, Katie, just checking up. I don't understand why you would block me. Like, I don't understand. Like, I thought we were gonna be friends, and I thought we had a good time. So I'm just really confused by everything that happened." And it's like, if a woman did that, she'd be literally put in a fucking asylum.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'd be like, oh, that crazy fucking bitch. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
lock her up.
But then so
Jesus.
but then fast forward, I'm at a show, it's Maeve Higgins' show, and there's a couple of Irish there, and they just happen to be talking about this guy who is like a little intense, and it's so random, but they mentioned a couple of things about his life, and I go, "It's not such and such," and they were like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Oh, that
Oh
guy."
my
How am I? That's so random. Like nearly 2.5 years later, they're just randomly chatting. And they weren't even like bitching. They were just like,
years after it happened.
yeah. Then they were just talking about this guy who like they kind of know, and just they were just like a little like, oh, he's a little odd, you know. And I'll try to keep it. You know, I'm afraid they're gonna listen to this and be like, he's gonna listen to this and find out. So I'm trying to keep this
Yeah,
as.
yeah, yeah.
But I was like, what are the chances that I would hear someone talking about him 2 years, 2.5 years later?
Wild.
But
Obviously,
yeah.
he hadn't learned from his actions at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, probably not. He seemed like he knew like he thought he knew better about me choking than
Yeah.
me on my own joke. Crazy. But have you
And it
dated
doesn't
any
surprise me.
have you dated any other Irish in Canada?
The guy with the finger actually he's
Oh, he
Irish.
was
Yeah.
Irish.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah,
Will you see him
he's
again?
Mayo. Yeah, I'm like still seeing him, so yeah.
Love and trauma. I'm
Yeah.
glad the trauma
I've
is
been,
just the potato, so.
yeah, just bled all over his apartment and
How long
but
is
yeah.
and he's living
Huh?
there a while.
Yeah, he's a Canadian citizen actually, yeah, so he's
Oh,
like
jackpot.
9 years or something like that. Yeah, so yeah, taking it handy. Just yeah, as what I was telling my granny, I was like, yeah, he's from Mayo and he's from Westport, and she was like, oh, they're good stock from Westport. I'm like, yeah, we'll keep it handy now for the minute. But actually, something funny happened during the week. I was hosting a show, and there was this couple that I started talking to, and I was like, oh, how long are you going out for, whatever. And they said this is their second date. And then when I asked them where they met, the guy got really weird and was like, "Oh, I don't know." And I was like, "How do you not know where you met?" And then he eventually was like, Bumble. And I like ripped the shit out of them, whatever. And then I get a message the following day on Tinder from a guy I had been talking to the week beforehand. And he was like, I was at your show last night. And I was like, and then it clicked with me because I didn't recognize him because it was dark or whatever. Looked at his profile. I was like, oh my God, were you the guy on the Bumble date? And he's like, yes, I was. Yeah. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. He was like, I was terrified you were going to say something and it was going to ruin my date. I was like, sorry, yeah, not to flatter you, but I didn't recognize you. So sorry about that.
I love that you're basically roasting him, still going on to the next day, being like, "Yeah, I didn't recognize you."
Yeah, I was like, "You're one of many, my dude." But yeah, so funny. But yeah, no, I was seeing a Mexican guy for a bit. Just kind of nothing serious, just here and there. And but like I find the crack is definitely different, like with the Irish lads, because you just have that like kind of um that rapport, I suppose. But I wouldn't really be hanging out in like many of the Irish pubs and stuff like that. And a lot of my friends are Canadian, like through comedy and stuff. So it was actually just really random that I bumped into the Irish fella with the potato
I mean, that is
in the
literally
pub.
like a meet cute. That is a movie. That is a rom-com. Two Irish meet Canada. Potato tries to ruin it. They fuck anyway. They're not gonna let generational trauma ruin their pleasure.
Yeah.
I
Oh
mean, if you
God,
said
I
that on
know.
stage, it would nearly seem like you made it up. Like it's
I
so
know, like, yeah, like, literally, I was telling the story the other day on stage, and I was like, yeah, and then we just, yeah, pinky in the air, fuck, and then, yeah, with the potato, everyone was like, no, I was like, no, really, it's, yeah. As soon as it happened, the first thing that came into my head was like, fuck's sake, this is just like a caricature of myself. It's like, first of all, met this fella in the pub, and then I caught myself on something with a potato. So yeah, no, it's fucking just oh, so annoying. But have you had those three guys? They got onto you from like doing comedy, was it? Like they're
yeah, yeah. So that's
yeah,
a red flag.
chuckle fuckers, as one of my friends calls it.
That's a red flag. Apparently, there's something to do with guys who chase women in the limelight. And I can't remember what the psychology was, but it can be like a bit of a red flag because they want to be in the limelight or something like that. So
Mm,
I like I'm with, but like I'm sure that's just you read these things on Instagram and then you're repeating
yeah,
it and then you're like I don't even know where I got this.
you're
I
like,
don't
where did
know
that come from?
the
Yeah.
citation is real unless this was just someone's like thoughts. But my boyfriend's a comedian and it is quite nice dating a comedian because yeah he's just like with me for me. It's not like because I'm
Yeah.
on stage being like banter or having control of the room, and then
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I don't want to be entertaining someone when I'm off stage.
Oh, absolutely. Like I hate like, when someone's not a comedian and then they bring you into a group and they're just like, this one's a comedian. And then it's like
Yeah.
these expectations then of like, oh, the worst is like, tell me a joke.
Mm. I'm like, no, I
Oh,
charge for those. That's why
yeah, 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 yeah.
I would always say that when I used to work at the bar. I'd never say I was a comedian, but a coworker would always drop it or a regular. They'd be like, "Oh, do you know she's a comedian?" And they'd be like, "Oh, well, you haven't been funny this whole time." And I'm like, "Yeah, because you're not paying me to be.
Yeah,
I'm here to be
yeah.
polite and serve your drinks." And they'd be like, "Well, tell us a joke." And I'm like, "Well, you can come to my show as a show Friday, 7:30, $10 tickets. It's my
Yeah,
cheapest show,
dead
so good
right.
luck."
I always ask when someone asks me to tell them a joke, I ask them what they do, and then I'm like, okay, you do a bit of that now, and then I'll do a bit
Yeah,
of mine. And they're like,
whip out your calculator.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, fuck off. And like that's something that I'm getting a lot on Tinder is like nothing. All they're saying is like, tell me a joke or can I
Mm,
come to your show like as a first
mm,
date? And it's like, what? You're
mm.
insane. So yeah, no, it's definitely I find it a weird one. Or lads just being like, I've always wanted to do comedy. Fuck off.
So is that. Where's the open mics? Google it.
Yeah. Here's the forum, go get that information yourself. But
Yeah.
I've had one message like after a show from a girl recently, and she was like, oh yeah, because I had a bit in my set about like coming out as bi to my granny, and then she messaged me and was like, hey, want to go for a drink? And then I replied to her and I was like, yeah, sure, I'm gone to New York and the island or whatever, and I'll be back and she never replied to me. So
Oh my God, that's amazing. I know I had a TikTok about getting ghosted by a girl. I just went on the girl hinge just for a little bit just to see. And the one girl
yeah.
I matched with, she ghosted me. And I was like, this
No.
is fucking rude. Like, I'm trying to figure out my sexuality and you're just making me go, no, back with the men.
Yeah. Back to the men I go. Yeah. Do you like,
And
even though you're in a relationship, do you find people still slipping into your DMs?
yeah, yeah. And they'll publicly
Yeah.
write on stuff like, yeah, I'd love to take you out or whatever. And I'm like, I literally just posted a picture of my boyfriend.
Yeah. What? Jesus
Well,
Christ.
whatever, people, shoot your shot.
Yeah.
What was it like when you came out to your granny as by?
Oh, it was literally like I said it in passing on the phone. Like we were FaceTiming and I was like, she said something. She was like, "Oh, and any boys now?" I was like, I'm just trying to I was trying to politely say to her that I was just doing some hoeing around. So I was like, "Yeah, I'm not looking for any boyfriends or girlfriends." And she was like, "Girlfriends as well, all of ye," because like my cousin and my brother as well are by, and she was like, Jesus, all of you are swinging both ways, huh? And I was like, it's just, I suppose that's just a thing now. And then that was kind of it. And we just moved on. Also, yeah, when I was trying to say, I was just like in my whole era. What did she say? She's 87. And yeah, she was like, oh, the old hit and run. I was like, yeah, exactly. But how? What?
Oh, that's so funny. If I were to tell my granny, if I were like, no, I don't identify as bi just because I've had like, it's more like fantasies and I've only dipped my toe in, but I've never been in a
Okay,
relationship or
yeah.
actually gone on a date. Um, but just, drunken kisses. Um, still in the
Little
closet.
drunken kisses.
I'm just putting my toe out of the closet. But if
Yeah.
I were like, I'm bi, she'd be like, oh, bye, 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 bye.
Yeah.
She was saying, oh, bye, 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 bye.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's why I was like, I'm not gonna use, even though like she knows. I think she knows the terms now. But yeah, because my brother told her that he was bi, and then she told my aunt. I think she said to my aunt, she was like, he's gay now. I was like,
He's gay. Yeah.
yeah, she's very like she's filthy. Like so
Oh,
I can like say a lot
older
to her,
people
like, oh
are. That's
yeah,
great.
it's
They always
unreal.
have this impression that I was doing this gig and the guy was like, "Oh, you should probably do clean because it's all old people." And I was like, "No, that means I should do dirtier."
Yeah,
They love a
yeah.
dirty joke.
Just
They've
because they're
lived a
old
life.
doesn't mean they like don't. Yeah, exactly. They've lived life. It doesn't mean they don't like the dirty stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
My granny always like says, really, what did she say? Oh, when I was talking about the fella from Mayo, she was like, and does he have road frontage? And I was like, I don't know if he has road frontage.
He has
And
a visa.
yeah, he
That's the
has a
equivalent.
passport. And she was like, well, there's one way to find out if he has road frontage. If you back into him. I was like, oh my God, I thought we were actually talking about land.
So did I. Oh my God. I wonder if I've been misunderstanding my granny for so long. This is about to time out because obviously for the listeners, you're in Canada and I'm in New York. Where can people
Yes.
follow you or listen to you? Do you have any podcasts or?
My Instagram is amy.walshy, and I'm actually will have a new podcast coming out soon enough. Yeah, so I'll be posting about that on my Instagram.
Let me know when it's out and we'll have you back. I have me and my multiple personalities. We'll have you back on and we can promote it once it's out and you have the link and everything.
Yeah,
Because this was great. I'd love to
absolutely.
do another chat because it's a pity
I'd
now
love
that
to.
I
Yeah.
don't have the upgrade. But okay,
Yeah,
brilliant. Thank
all
you so
good.
much.
Okay,
Wait,
thanks
what
so
was your
much for
Instagram
having
again?
me. Amy.walshy.
Okay, perfect. Okay, great.
Yes,
Everybody make
yeah.
sure to follow. And that was
Yeah.
so much fun. That was great
Yeah,
chat.
thank you so much. That was
So keep in
unreal.
touch when you're
Yeah,
yeah. But
absolutely. Hopefully I'll be back in New York and then yeah, we can meet in person properly.
after I would love that. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna